Thank you for watching Spindle City Straight Talk, and welcome. I'm CJ.
And I'm Chip.
And we're here just before the 4th of July, so I hope everyone has a happy Independence weekend. And I hope you have some fun, although the weatherman is saying that Tropical Storm Arthur, I believe it is possibly going to ruin our weekend. So, but I firmly believe that the water is too cold to support a tropical storm, so I think maybe on the 4th of July we'll get a little wind and a lot of rain, but other than that, I think we'll be fine. We're having a little technical difficulty this taping because our usual director isn't available, so I want to thank Kevin for filling in and making sure we get our show on the air. But it's been an interesting week, even though a slow news week. I had the pleasure of taping a Niagara Neighborhood Association meeting, and it was very interesting to find out some information. They had pay-as-you-throw there, because that's the new if, then, and what that's going on in Fall River. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that today because the city is planning a huge education plan for pay-as-you-throw. And in the next couple of days, there'll be a mailing which goes out to every resident of the city that currently uses city waste collection. So if you are already in a situation where you use a dumpster or a private company, you won't get one of the mailings. But there's a mailing going out explaining what's acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and how the plan's going to work. And then towards the end of July, just before this plan takes effect on August 4th now, we have the exact date, which is August 4th, another mailing will go out, and that mailing will have a bag in it. So you're going to get a free bag, one free 30-gallon bag for $2. And they're not going to charge you for the first bag. But Ken Pacheco made it very clear that the city is not going to make any other bags free or at a reduced price to anyone. So for our seniors and our low-income people, they're going to pay the $2 per bag charge, which I think is kind of, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I want to go back to the budget meeting when it was approved, when the budget was approved, because something that came up which nobody has really talked about, and we don't know if they're going to do it or not, but the mayor was very clear when he said that the way this program works in other cities and towns across the Commonwealth and elsewhere is that they assess a fee on the property owner. Currently, Brockton assesses a $75 collection fee per building on the property owner. So is that something else that the city's going to have to look at to make this program work for the city? Because it was kind of a shot in the side when they found out that the money they raise has to be used for waste management only. And as we've talked about before, we still believe that the city needs to separate DCM from sanitation so that those budgets never accidentally cross, because we know what the commingling of funds happens on a regular basis here in the city for some unforeseen reasons. There's always these commingling accidents, and that's kind of not a good thing. But it's what is going on. The city's going to plan, though, for an education program. So they're not going to hit you with a fine right away. Ken Pacheco has said that they expect the landlords to step in and help out. So the city will go and knock on the doors the first time, and they'll say, this is what has to happen, this is what you need, is there a problem with the bags, let's see if we can find a way to solve that problem for you. You know, maybe they don't know, so you can't use your white hefty bags or your Glad bags anymore, you have to use the purple city bags. So again, they're going to do the first step. And if it continues on after that, they're going to speak to the landlords, the property owners. And the property owners are going to have to talk to their tenants and do some education with their tenants. And that's going to go on for 2 or 3 times. But we found the actual fine. Excuse me. So are you ready for this, property owners? The fine is going to be $300 per infraction. It's not going to be graduated. It's going to be $300 per infraction. And if they can identify the tenant, and again, that's a big if, it's going to be $300 for the tenant. But they're also going to hit you with a $300 fine. So do you want to take that risk is the big question. The other big component of this is that the city applied for a grant from the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, to hire enforcement officers. And they received $200,000, $300,000 in that range. And they have hired 4 new enforcement officers. And these are the people that are going to come and, hey, you're using the wrong bags. Stop using them. Oh, and here's your $300 fine. So, Chip, are you ready for that knock on your door?
Well, as usual, it's all about money. It's all about the bottom line in this city, because we're broke, and this is what we have to resort to. But as I said in a previous show, I see a myriad of problems with this pay-as-you-throw. Number one, these enforcement officers are going to be knocking on doors for people who have an infraction. Well, there are doors in this community that the police department won't go in without backup.
True.
So they're going to knock on some door where there's a drug deal going on, and what's going to happen? Are they going to have police escort them after the first incident? Who's going to pay for these things? The other thing is, what do we get with the people who obviously have multiple dwellings and have tenants or absentee landlords whose tenants are being evicted? They don't care if the landlord gets fined. They're going to maybe intentionally violate the ordinances so their landlord can get fined. I mean, you know, this pay-as-you-throw is nothing more than a hidden tax. It's nothing more than gouging money, again, out of a beleaguered taxpayer who can't afford it. And realistically, there's a total disregard. What really upsets me about this thing in the city of Fall River, other communities have some regard for the people. They have holidays at Christmas time where you don't have to put every single item in a bag. We're not going to have that. Some communities have discounts for the elderly, people on low income. We're not going to have that. It's like, who cares? And ironically enough, at a few shows ago, I talked about a woman who was living on $849 a month, who was 95 years old, and CJ just spoke to another woman who's living on $839 a month. And she called CJ, and CJ can expand on that, but complaining about how is she going to afford this. She's going to have to choose between getting prescriptions, paying as you throw, or eating. This is just unconscionable. And what makes it even worse is the fact that this city has made absolutely no attempt to cut the fat, to eliminate unnecessary jobs, to tighten their belts, while the people who live in a city where 23% of the people live below the poverty level are going to have to get increases in virtually everything that is taxable. Every fee, every tax has gone up. It is just, you know, beyond my comprehension how this can happen. Somebody made a comment that our last show was somber. You know, it should be somber, justifiably so, because what's happening in this city is tragic. You know, we are talking about real people. I don't know whether our mayor, who spends more time in Rhode Island than he does in Massachusetts, or our city council, who apparently are so out of touch with the city, they don't realize that we live in a city that has a tremendous amount of poverty and low income, what they're doing to the people. And they're saying we can't live with a 112 budget. I'm saying that maybe that's what we should be living with, because we need someone to come in here and straighten out this city. And as I said at a meeting to some people in the union who were worried about what would happen if we went into receivership, I said, you know, sometimes you have to burn something down to rebuild it. Maybe it's time to burn down this city and put it in receivership so somebody can come in here, get our books in order, prioritize our spending so we're paying for essential services and not paying high-priced lawyers while we have to cut fire departments and police departments. It's absolutely ridiculous. It is a somber issue. We're talking about people who can barely afford to eat being subjected to a total insensitivity by their own government. It's time to change the government.
Well, you know, Chip, it really is true, and we've said this many times over, and so have many people in the city who have asked for a new face in government. But the problem is the same people keep getting elected. And interestingly enough, you know, Councilor Danny Rigo was able to come out and stand up for what he believed in. And people actually said he was a fool for doing that. I think he was actually right on the money in what he did. And Councilor Linda Pereira, who is still recovering from very serious brain surgery, went on the air. She called the radio station and she said, I would have voted against this budget. And the two people who voted for this budget, who were solely against it before, have said, what are we supposed to do? It was either a 112 budget, which would put us in a worse situation, or vote for this budget. And the day of that budget meeting, I called out the city council. And I said, you've canceled the finance committee meeting, which is a flag for the people in the know and the people in Fall River who follow politics on a regular basis, know that that means this budget has already been passed. So we know that. And we knew it then. And that day, I was with Dan Robillard, part of the unholy trinity. And I was with Carlos Caesar and a few other people. And I said very clearly, this is going to pass 7-1, with Danny being the abstaining vote. And wasn't it amazing? It passed 7-1. I was very much not surprised. But Joe Camara had to make a comment, again, in violation of Cushing's rules of order, because obviously this man thinks that his words are important enough to stay from the chair, which I want to remind you, Counselor, that you have to recuse yourself from the chair. You have to step down for any comment you want to make in regards to any issue, and have your vice president step up and assume your position at the podium. And then you can make your comments from the well. If you haven't reviewed that, that is also in city ordinance, that you must step down. So how can we expect our city council to do what's right and follow the law when the city council president violates the law every day, every time he's on that podium? I mean, it's a little ridiculous. But he had to make sure that we all knew that. This vote hasn't been decided. That vote was decided long before that council chamber was ever filled. And it's just sad. I mean, I want to go out and buy Cushing's rules of order and hand them out to all the councilors. I really do.
Well, it's worse than that. When are we going to say enough is enough? Anybody who didn't realize that this vote the fix was in, so to say, right from the beginning, has to just look at your tax bill. You got them the next day.
I noticed
Basically,
that. Yeah.
You got them the next day. You got your tax bill. So the tax bills are already set based on the budget passing. The fact is that the vilification of the only councilor with enough courage to vote against this budget was led by Councilwoman Pat Casey, who has never ever voted against the mayoral initiative, and who, with all due respect, has a difficult time putting a sentence together. Yet she went on a diatribe that was obviously written for her, because I've seen her before with prearranged questions. And the fact is, everything was orchestrated to make it look like there was a debate on this issue, and there was great consternation in defense. We can't go to a 112. Everybody figured out a reason to explain why they didn't have enough cojones, or cojones, or however.
Cojones.
Cojones, all right? My Spanish isn't that good. To stand up as representatives of the people and say enough is enough. We're destroying this city. We're delaying the inevitable. And next year, when we're in the same position, or they try to hide it because it's an election year, you know, this city is on the verge of receivership. We've seen Dan Botello go before the council, show documentation from sources that said that our bond rating is in jeopardy. Everything is in jeopardy. The city doesn't have two nickels to rub together. We've proven that. Yet, 3 of the city councilors who voted against the budget initially flipped. And they all had an excuse. We can't go to 112. We can't do this. Oh, we're going to destroy the city. Well, guess what, people? By delaying this and by spending money we don't have and by burdening a community where the average household income is less than half the state average, by burdening a community that has the second highest amount of people living below the poverty level, by having a community that's workforce is virtually non-existent, and I gave you the numbers on the last show, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what planet you're living on. Apparently, you get in your Mercedes after the meeting and drive out of the city, because the fact is, walk the streets like we do. We're going to do some shows live on the streets of Fall River this summer. We're going to walk up these streets and show you these neighborhoods and show you the people and talk to some of these people and ask them how much money they make. Maybe if you watch the show, you'll get it. Maybe you'll get the fact that this is not Newton. It's not Wellesley. You know, stop believing the cons. You can't put people in those seats who are not going to work in the best interest of the public, in your interest. This city, you can't have a city council and a mayor that wants a champagne budget when we can barely afford beer, and draft beer at that. And the thing is that, you know, we continue to buy this charade. Oh, this agonizing debate on the budget. It's like, okay, let's make it look like there was a little bit of concern about the budget, and then everybody will flip and we'll make excuses and we'll say how we saved the city. We had to do this to save the city. Well, if saving the city means sacrificing the people in the community, what have we accomplished?
Not a whole heck of a lot, I'll tell you that right now. But you know, the thing is, you know, you were speaking about the woman who called, and it was very interesting how she got our number, and I don't want to reveal that. And she didn't call the tip line either, because our tip line is not answered, mind you. Our tip line is recorded with your information that you want us to have. She actually called somebody to find out how to get a hold of either yourself or me, and she called me, and she sounded like the sweetest old woman, and she said, I don't know what to do. She goes, my kids are already taking care of a lot of things that I can't afford to take care of anymore or I can't do, and now I'm going to truly have to decide whether to get my medication or to eat, because there's just too many bills that I keep getting hit by the city. It's not even by, you know, the electric company or the gas company, it's by the city. And I felt very bad. I felt like saying, you know, I want to go over to your house and pick up your tax bill. But pay-as-you-throw is actually now a tax. Excuse me, correct that, a fee that the city can now hit on every taxpayer, on every resident. Everyone has to pay the bill, not just the property owners. And that's kind of sad. But what I think is very interesting is that everyone's knocking on my door or hitting me up on Facebook, and they're saying, give me the name of the guy that picks up your trash now. Because as I've been very clear of making out to people, I do not use, nor have I used for a while, city collection services. I use a private company. And I have been giving out that number to anybody who asks for it. And as a matter of fact, my neighborhood's gotten so busy, or the city's gotten so busy, that they've changed my collection day from Friday to Wednesdays this week. It's now on Wednesday. So how is that going to affect this budget? Because they're expecting $3.5 million out of this puppy. And if everyone gives up on it, they're not going to get it. And I understand what Ken Pacheco said. That's less trash we have to pick up and less trash we have to pay for to get rid of. But you have to remember, that's now an enterprise fund, Kenny, which means every single employee of that department must be paid for out of the money raised by the pay-as-you-throw or the potential fees that may be assessed the property owners for each building. So we have to look at that. And you have to ask yourself, is this really going to pan out for the city? Is this really going to work? Because if the enterprise fund shows a deficit, which it can't, that means the bag rate has to go up. Although Kathy Ann very clearly stated at Monday's Niagara Neighborhood Association meeting that there will be no increase in bag fees. But other cities and towns have said that, and their fees have gone up since too. So again, we have to look at what do we really want to have and what can we honestly see for Fall River. It's definitely a bad situation. But let's get on to a little more stupidity for the city of Fall River. As we all know, Route 79 is coming down along Duval Street, and the 4th of July is Friday. Now, with the 4th of July being Friday, wouldn't you think that the mayor or somebody would have said, hey, we need to move the fireworks somewhere else? But instead, the fireworks will go off Friday at 9 p.m. north of the Braga Bridge, which means Battleship Cove and that area where it's been going off for many years. But here's the problem. No roadway, no parking, a regular crap hole left for a park. So where are the people going to go to watch the fireworks? Do you have any idea, Chip? I don't. I'm kind of lost on this one.
Well,
I mean,
it's kind of you know the same old with the mayor. He doesn't care. It's going to be a photo op. He'll take a picture, and like he does in the parades, and then he'll disappear. You know, the fact is that there's no consideration for anything in this city except photo ops. Obviously, we don't care about the people. To get back to the trash, one $300 fine is less than you'll pay for a year's worth of pickup by ABC.
right.
So why would people say that? And if anybody thinks that this isn't just strictly a revenue fee, because they're looking at this money not to run it, they're looking up how much money it's going to free up for them to use in other areas. And when they don't begin to raise that money, we've got a problem. Now we've got fireworks, and then we're going to have carnivals. And that's one of the problems. One of the problems is that, you know, it's like the ostrich approach to the world and government. Let's pretend that Fall River is this wonderful place, like Alice through the looking glass. We have carnivals, and we have skating rinks, and we have fireworks, and while the city's falling apart, people can't afford anything. We have people living on $839 a month, $849 a month, and we're raising their fees. I mean, you know, 2.5, override 2.5, forget it. We just I have overridden 2.5 by about 20%. Because when you think about what you're going to pay at the end of this year, when you have an increase in your water rates, increase in your meter charges, increase on your pay as you throw, then if they institute this $75 fee on every property, in addition to the pay as you throw, now you got a 2.5 increase of your actual property taxes. By the time you get through, you're probably the cost of having a house in Fall River has probably gone up 12 or 14%.
And we can't afford it. The city can't afford it, and the people can't afford it. And this is our big problem. You know, the city council doesn't listen to the people. We are told we are doing what is best for the city. I've yet to see what's best for the city. You know, they talked about those budget cuts, and we read them at the last show. And nobody took a hit in their salary. There's not one lawyer that took a decrease in their salary. And the mayor actually had the audacity to answer a question when what cuts did he take by reporter Barry Richards from WSAR. He answered it with, I don't get stipends, but if I had gotten any, I would have given them all up. I would have given up 100% of my stipends. Well, basically what you said is you didn't give a cut. You didn't give anything back to the city. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you were considerate for the people of Fall River. Just like the law department. I'm sure the law department took extensive cuts to their salaries. Oh, wait, they didn't. They didn't take cuts to their salaries. They took cuts to their budget. And they weren't salary cuts. They were cuts to what they can do. Like $60,000 less for appeals. Even Kathy Ann, she really didn't take a cut in her salary. She took a cut in her stipends and her budget for her office and her travel expenses. And the treasurer, oh no, we're not going to pay his gasoline back and forth to city council, but we're not touching his salary. Did we get rid of any consultants? I don't think so. You know, maybe it's time we, we as a people revolt. And after this budget was passed, and after the talks about pay as you throw and increases in water and sewer and everything else, and they said this is the best we could do for the people of Fall River, the people of Fall River said, whoa, wait a minute, no, this isn't the best we can do. And I was contacted by people who are trying to put together a committee to recall now not just the mayor, but members of the city council. I can think of 4 right off the top of my head I'd like to get rid of. But that's a lot of work, and people need to understand that. And I've told people that have called me, I said, I will email you the special act of legislation that was passed to do this, because that started a whole war on Facebook that you can't do that because there's no laws in the Commonwealth that allow for it. No, there are special acts of legislation which do allow it, and we have a copy of it. And the last time that Chipper and his gang got together, his gang of 10, which were shot down by the city clerk by order of corporate counsel and the mayor, and we know that for a fact now, Mr. Mayor, they tried to make them jump through every hoop that was not built into the law. The law clearly states 10 signatures from 10 registered voters are to be presented to the city clerk, who in turn prepares the ballot signature forms, and then you go out and you've got to get 5% of the registered voters of the city of Fall River, which isn't that many people. It's approximately 2,200 people. To be safe, you want to get 2,500. So now, I guess they're really moving together because they want to get a meeting together sometime after the holiday. At least that's what I was told, and that was posted on various Facebook pages. Look in Facebook. Google Fall River. Find out what people are saying about us. Find out how many people are laughing at us and how many companies says they wouldn't locate here because there's nothing here for them. You know, the governor just signed legislation about